This is the
Hold on a second.
with your host for the evening, Ike
Silly! It's your day! That's what you've been practicing for!
and Proc.
Hey, buddy, roll your window down so I can ask you about your dead friend.
We hope you thoroughly enjoy the show. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to the Untitled Cars Show. We have with us, or I have with me, Doug DeMuro. You know him from Jalopnik. You know him from his Ferrari and his Skyline Hummer and all those other little fun things he has. So, Doug, say hi, and I hope I pronounced that
Hello.
name right.
Yeah, no, you got it, Doug DeMuro. Hello, everyone.
Hey, how's it going? So, Doug, I just want to say I love the articles you write on Jalopnik first and foremost. It's about once a week article appears on there.
Yeah, it's actually like three a week, but only one a week is devoted to the crazy cars, and those are usually the ones that are as popular. So,
well, again, if you don't know Doug is the guy who had a Range Rover he bought from CarMax with the extended warranty and has went back there. Do you know how many times you actually went back under that warranty?
well, God, yeah, it's a good question. I don't know how many times, but I know we're about 6,600 into that warranty now. I only paid 3,800 for it, so it was a good investment. I'm very pleased with it to this day,
Yeah,
especially because it's only half over.
yeah, you still have the Range Rover?
Oh yeah, I still got it's pretty much the only car I drive. The warranty expires in December of 2018, so I'm going to keep it until that day, and then it of course will be sold as quickly as humanly possible.
Yeah, don't blame me on that. For some reason, I thought you got rid of it and got the Skyline and the Hummer now, and that was it. So.
No, those cars I really only use for the purposes of videoing and writing about and stuff. So I don't even keep them at my house. I have them stored somewhere. So the Range Rover I drive 99.9% of the time.
I guess around Philly,
I just haven't had any problems with it lately. That's why you haven't heard anything about it. It's been reliable for the last few months.
Yeah, that's very un-Range Rover. Maybe they fixed it. Maybe you won't get anything else out of it, and then you'll be very disappointed, I assume.
Well, I would be very disappointed. I want to get as much out of that warranty as I can. I always tell the dealer, please take a long look over it.
Yeah. So let's go. So, Doug, you've had quite the long and storied history of being in the automotive world. So let me just start at the beginning. So you used to work for, or I guess it's not the full beginning. You used to work for Porsche of North America, right?
Right. Yep.
And my question is, what did you do before you worked for Porsche for America that got you to
I got that job right out of college. In fact, they offered that job to me on the Monday, and I graduated on that Thursday. So it worked out. It worked out very well. I got very lucky with that situation. So I had an internship with them when I was in college, and then they hired me when I graduated.
And now you've left them, and now you're writing full time. So.
Right. I left them in the beginning of 2013, so it's been about 2.5 years now.
Wow. So, what brought you into what was your first car? I guess is where I want to start with all this.
My first car. You know what? My first car, you will appreciate. My first car was the 1996 Volvo 850 turbo sedan.
That
is a fantastic car.
Yeah, I love those old Volvo sedan. You kind of lost me on that, but. Was it at least manual?
Well, I didn't. My parents bought it for me. It was at that time. It was ratty and old and crappy, and it was the first car. It was a beggars and choosers kind of situation, if you understand my drift. So I didn't have much of a choice. But it was for when I was 16, and that car had 222 horsepower. That thing was a rocket ship. I thought at the time.
Well, they're not slow, so they are a bit of a rocket ship, and it's still got more horsepower than half the Civics out there. So
that's right.
So you went from an 850 sedan to, I'm assuming you had that through college?
I had that. No, it was actually, unfortunately, it was too unreliable. We had to get rid of it when I went to college, and we got an Audi A4 about the same vintage, which was slower but more somehow more reliable. That Ford Volvo, the early front wheel drive turbos were not the most reliable cars. In retrospect, if I had gotten the 2.4 liter, the naturally aspirated 2.4 liter, it would have held up a little better.
Yeah, I don't know because I have a later generation Volvo V70R, and I've had nothing but fucking issues with that car for the last month.
Did you have the one that came out that also had the S60R version, or did you have the boxy one, the like 2000 one?
I had the one. It was the later generation, the one that was also the S60. Yeah.
Beautiful car. They had some issues, definitely.
Yeah, well, it's beautiful, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this. I've had issues with this car. No one has ever had issues with this car. So
that's always good.
You know it's bad when you go on and you're talking to all the other Volvo guys and go, I think my head gasket's blown. And they're like, these cars never blow head gaskets, not in a million years. It's anything else but. And it's like, it turns out it's a head gasket. So.
Well, that's sad, but with a Volvo, based on my own Volvo experiences, that doesn't surprise me that much. I went through engine mounts frequently, which is hard to do. I went through many engine mounts, and after a while, we were just like, this has got ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think I would ever have made it to engine mounts. I think I would have been like the first one, and then the second time, like, no, something. Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's time to move on. Yeah.
So then you had the Audi through college, and then Porsche internship. What do you think? Like, that's a little bit weird of like a car history. Like, when did you actually get into automobiles? Like, was it in college?
I've been into cars. It's funny because I've been into cars since I was a little kid. When I had like Hot Wheels and Matchbox. My brother was into sports and I was into cars, and that was the difference. And to this day, he knows nothing about cars and I know virtually nothing about sports. And it just sort of progressed. I don't know why. But I was into cars always from the get-go, even with the boring Audi. But as I just didn't really have that much of a choice at the time. And I lived in Colorado then, and everybody had either an Audi or a Subaru. So, it was one or the other.
And you're not a lesbian, so Audi it is. So.
It's funny because when I lived out there, everybody had a Subaru. And when I moved to Georgia for college, everybody said, oh, Subarus are lesbian cars. And I said, well, what are you talking about? Everybody's got a Subaru. But it turns out in Georgia, no, they're just lesbian Subarus. And in Colorado, everybody is.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing to me, just because I moved from outside Chicago to basically just outside of D.C., and it is funny when you see the difference in, like, what everyone drives from where you were to where you are now. Like, it was all Ford Tauruses and, like, Ford Explorers, like, ruled the land out there. No pickup trucks, no, like, you'd see them every now and again, but it was like, meh. And now that we're here, it's nothing but lifted pickup trucks, and, like, that's it. Like, maybe every now and again you see, like, a 10-year-old BMW, someone, like, a Senate staffer, or, like, someone, like, a White House aide, thanks to her big shot, bought an old BMW, and that's all they're driving. So.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, the Midwest is sort of a... Chicago, too, has rust issues. So you probably see older cars in DC than you can see in Chicago.
Yeah, it's funny because it's a mixed bag. You either see brand new, like, nice vehicles. Well, I also kind of lived in a nicer area, so it was all brand new shit, or it was stuff that nowhere else in the country could exist. Like, it was stuff that survived the rust, and that was it.
Right.
So, like, 5-year-old cars do not exist in Chicago. It's either you got brand new...
It's either stuff that's lasted this long or it's going to stay together, or brand new stuff.
Yeah. So getting on to that, you've lived, and I know I'm kind of jumping all over, you've lived where? Atlanta, Philly, Boston, I think?
Yeah, so I was born in Colorado, and I grew up there, and then I moved to Atlanta for college, and then I got my job with Porsche, and I stayed there. So I was in Colorado my first 17 years, and then I was in Atlanta for 8 or 9 years, and now we've been in Philly for just a little over a year. Okay. So some different perspectives for sure.
Yeah. So I'm pretty convinced the DC area has the worst drivers. Out of where you've been, where has the worst drivers?
Well, I've now been to 41 U.S. states, and I've been to 3 continents. And I am happy and proud to agree with you. The Washington, D.C. area has the absolute worst drivers in the country. However, I don't think it's entirely their fault. You get a mix of people who speak 1,000 languages, right? You walk around D.C. and you hear languages you don't hear anywhere else.
Yeah.
And then also you have roads. I mean, I get lost. I go to D.C. every couple weekends. I get lost driving around. You get circles that have traffic circles that have stoplights in them. You have highways that the sign, and then there's another, and then there's a merge and a sign and a merge. And I have driven into Virginia before when I was trying to go from one location in DC to another location close by in DC on accident. I think the roads are a huge factor in the poor quality of DC drive.
I'll agree with that because they were designed like outside of like basically 6 blocks out of the Capitol. After the British came and burned down everything, they went, maybe we should make it a little bit more confusing for them to get here. So I get that. But I still think, I don't know, DC is the only big city I know of where you don't have to parallel park as part of the driver's ed test.
That's true.
Yeah, and that's all you do here. There is no parking garage.
That's all you do, yeah.
Nothing. Yeah. Ridiculous. That I don't get that. So I'm happy to be proven right on this one. That's all I want to say.
There's absolutely no question. But and also, do you agree with me that when you see a car with diplomatic plates, you give it a wider berth?
No.
I mean, I was worried, are those guys insured? Are they even going to stick around and then there's an accident? I'm always scared like crazy when I see one of those.
Well, I'm crazy enough. I drive around with a video camera in my car, so when shit happens.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but no, I think that's you live here long enough, and you just recognize diplomatic tags are just asshats. Like that's how they drive. I give them no berth. I just treat them like they don't belong here.
I am. Every time I'm so skeptical of diplomats. I'm always like, you've got immunity. You're going to take off. You don't care. That's not even your car. I always freak out.
No, those aren't the ones that get me. The ones that get me are when you see a random government plate on random black car and you don't know. Because, like, DC has so many different police departments just, like, located inside of it. You're like, I don't know if that guy has the speed camera or what's going on here. So it's like, you could just stay up ahead of me. That'll be fine. So,
right, and then you have to contend with DC speed cameras and Maryland speed cameras themselves, which are a whole other. I've gotten tickets from both DC and Maryland.
Yeah, and that's the other weird thing too is I fought a DC speeding ticket, and that's easy because it's a moving violation, so they have to prove you were driving a car. So it's a Fourth Amendment. You can't prove I was in the car, so basically go to hell. Maryland's another whole bag. You got to play the stupid move my court date, move my court date, move my court date. Oh, look, it disappeared.
I was thinking it was going to be hundreds of dollars, and it turned out it was like $25, and I was like, well, all right, I think I'll just go ahead and pay that. I'm good.
Yeah, well, and I gotta say I gotta fix this issue. We lost a bit of the recording there, but I don't think it was a big bad thing. This is what happens when Proc leaves me and goes on his honeymoon. So.
Oh no. So what's his deal? He said he's on his honeymoon. Is that what he said?
Yeah, he's on his honeymoon this week. So he's gone for the next 10 days. So he's got.
Where is he?
I should know, and I have no idea. I think it's a cruise. But when I talk to Proc, it's either podcast shit or it's how do I take care of an audio problem? And that's basically the two, or cars for the other part of that. So
is he in DC with you, or is he somewhere else?
He's really close by. He lives before he lived in basically Annapolis, and I'm up in Pasadena now, and I used to live south of him. So if you kind of know where that is. So yeah, not to give away too much to listeners as to where we're at, but I'm in Pasadena, Maryland, which it's right on the cusp of a block away from me is Rednecks, a block away from me is the Bay, and a block away from me is rich motherfuckers. So yeah, is that how Philly is? I kind of got that with Philly,
Yeah, we're right in the center of the city here, so but Philly is a little bit of that. Although you also, instead of rednecks, toss in significant violent street crime. So we have the water, the rich people, and the significant violent street crime. But I actually love it in Philly. I don't know if you get out here that often, but I like it. I'm surprised. People say so many negative things, but it's actually not so bad.
Well, I went to Philly. This is back when I was driving my 2011 Dodge Challenger, and I explored the city with my then girlfriend, now wife, and we had a blast. And I like Philly. I don't understand the cheese whiz on the in Chicago we put provolone on that shit and we call it an Italian beef. For some reason I don't get it. You get it?
No, I've never got it. In fact, I think that whole thing is stupid. You know, Philly actually has a ton of great restaurants, and I hate that it's known for this cheesesteak, which is like the worst, bad food in the world. I've made it a goal not to eat a cheesesteak during my entire time here in Philly. So we've been a year, and we're succeeding so far.
Yeah. Well,
but my girlfriend insists you got to put cheese whiz on it. I mean, I don't know,
no, provolone. I think there's like a street where you can get provolone shit on it, or so I've been told. Ooh, excuse me. But Dave, it's funny because you had a recent article about the parking, and parking basically is for a reason. And I always heard Philly's the worst, and I parked up there, and I got a parking ticket immediately. But
no, there's no doubt. I've driven and parked at every major city in the U.S. There's no doubt. Philly and San Francisco, but I think Philly's even worse than San Francisco. It's insane. DC is actually relatively easy as it goes.
Yeah. Well, DC, once you understand the gobbledygook they put on there, like Zone 6 permits accepted. So does that mean this 2-hour limit is for Zone 6 or not? I'm just going to go somewhere else. But no, the funny thing is I had a Blackberry Pearl Dodge Challenger at the time, and in the shade it looked black, and in the sun it looks very blue. So when they wrote the ticket, it was in the shade, and they wrote down black Dodge Challenger. So I fought it. I just sent it. Proc leaves, we lose a bit of recording. So I sent in the ticket, and I said, "Oh, you have this listed as a black car. It's actually blue. So can we get this thrown out?" And they threw it out, which I thought was pretty reasonable. So.
That's funny. I suspect they probably throw it out for most people who fight it, since most people probably just pay it.
Yeah. Well, I guess it can't be worth it unless you have like a whole bunch of people fighting it and a whole bunch of people, don't want to spend money. Otherwise, it's basically
the last thing they want to do is actually try to enforce these things. They're just going to say you're good, because I think 99% of people just pay and move on. I mean, the ticket's only like $36. I paid a few of them, which is life.
Yeah. Well, and I get it. We need, and like you said in the article, you kind of need the parking enforcement, otherwise chaos, which is good.
Right.
But then I don't know. I can't think. I've been driving around. I've been in DC. I've been in Philly. I've been Chicago. I've been in most major cities. And if you just basically take the time to read it, it kind of makes sense, and you can avoid a ticket or just park in a parking garage.
It's not so hard.
No,
it's not so hard. And if you get a ticket, I mean, this is life. Sometimes it happens. Yeah. What I don't get are people who complain bitterly about these things when they themselves have screwed up.
Yeah.
Like, well, I was only over by 5 minutes. Well, yeah, but you were over. That's the rule,
Yeah.
What do you want? You should pay for more time.
Well, and I think Philly's the same way. They have the mobile app now where it'll even remind you, hey, your parking's expiring in like 15 minutes. You might want to get back to the car.
Right.
So.
Right. They've made it as easy as they can. Now it's on you. Now the consumer actually has to do something.
Yeah. So, speaking of that Challenger, I kind of want to be like copacetic here with you for a second. I drove around 2 Challengers basically when they were brand new, the RTs, and I would pull in to a gas station, and for the life of me, I could not escape some old fart talking to me constantly about like, back in the day, I had a Barracuda, which is basically the same thing. Well, except that it's made by like, Like, I need to go. Like, you had a Ferrari. I think I've read it was pretty much the same thing. It doesn't attract chicks. It just attracts weird dudes.
It got to the point where I would drive out to the suburbs just to fill it up because the car was more common out there. Like I would drive to a nice suburb, 20 minutes just to fill the tank because I actually love when people come up and talk to me about cars that I'm driving when they have something to say. So someone comes up about the Skyline and it's like, hey, I play Great Physical. But someone comes up to the Ferrari and it's not like, oh, cool Ferrari. It's, hey, man, what'd that thing cost? And it's like, or, hey, will you trade me? And I'm just like, oh, my God. You can only have so many of those conversations before you want to blow your brains out,
Yeah. Well, say something new, say something clever, or say something nice. And that's kind of the rule I came up with. So.
Yeah. I mean, I love when car people talk to me. When I had my V-Wagon, kind of like, that car only would be approached by car people, and you could count on it. You'd have a 20-minute conversation about cars and that was great.
Yep.
But when the guy walks up to you and says, "I'll trade you for my pickup," it's like, not again. Not another trade me for my pickup guy.
I haven't heard that one before. Pull out the chalkboard.
Right, never. You're the first, man. Okay, let's do the trade. You got your title.
Did anyone else? Because I know that car was a bit like. And we're back. Okay. Again, apologize for that. It always seems to be the good interviews where this thing wants to mess up. So, as I was saying, so you had the, as the regular car review guys put it, the village bicycle of Ferraris, where you kind of let people come and review it and like drive it around. And that's like mind blowing to me because like I was phobic letting people drive around like a $40,000 Challenger, and you're like, man, go drive around, however much it was for a Ferrari, and it's like replacement parts had to be a ton, but you never really had any issues lending it with anyone or like any bad experience.
Well, no, the thing is, the car was insured, and you can't be the guy who has a Ferrari and doesn't let your friend, try it out. And it was very important to me. The Ferrari was not, my first sports car. I had a Lotus, I had Porsches. And so, like, it wasn't as mind-blowing to me as it was to my friends. And I think that everybody deserves to check it out, So I had no problem with it. And to be perfectly honest, I don't regret it at all. Everybody who I let drive that car was far more careful than I was. They were all so worried about damaging it. Nobody pushed it. Nobody drove it hard. They did way less potential damage to the clutch or whatever than I could have ever done. And they all came away having driven a Ferrari. So it was kind of a win-win. And I had no qualms about sending it out at all.
And
I would do the same, and I still do the same. Everybody who comes over drives the Skyline, the Hummer, that's life.
I don't remember. Is the Skyline right-hand drive?
Yeah, the Skyline is right-hand drive. We could use it as a postal delivery vehicle if we really wanted to.
How long did that take getting used to?
It's funny because we went to it was a week before I picked the Skyline up. I did a spring break trip this year to Malta, which is an island in the Mediterranean, and they drive on the right side of the car and the left side of the road. And so I rented a car there and drove around for a week, and I kind of got used to it. So we came back, and like 2 days later, I was in the Skyline. I was already used to it. It's perfect. But it is weird. And the weirdest part now is switching from car to car. Every single time I get in the Skyline, I try to jump in on the wrong side. Every time. And vice versa. After I spend a day filming with the Skyline, I'm jumping in on the wrong side of my Range Rover. Every time.
Yeah. It's got to be good for a garage, though, I would think, because you could have the doors open on the outside so you don't have to dent and ding and all that bullshit.
Right, exactly. You can pull it as close as you want to somebody, on one side because you're getting out on the other side. And it's great for parallel parking because you're right on the curb,
Is that the weirdest aspect of driving it, is the right-hand drive? Because it's a crazy Japanese import. I can't imagine, like, gauges are in English or,
Everything, believe it or not, everything is in English, which is a very odd thing. There are a couple of, like, the manual is in Japanese, and there are a couple of, like, stickers that I guess are, like, Japanese, like inspection stickers that are in Japanese. But everything's in English. And yeah, the craziest part of driving is right-hand drive. Otherwise, it actually drives like a fairly normal car. It has some power. I mean, it has some kick to it, but not any more than a regular sports car.
Yeah. And who are you approached at gas stations by with that? Is that all just car guys? With
that car, unless someone notices that I'm on the wrong side, I'm only approached by people who really appreciate it, and it's great. The conversations are great. People will come up to me in an Evo, and they'll say, "Hey, that's so cool," and I'll say, "Hey, your Evo's so cool." We're getting a long conversation. It's not. It is the opposite of the people who come up to you at the store. Like, nobody wants to trade you their pickup for the Skyline. The Skyline just looks like an old Altima. See if you don't know. And I like that.
I like that. That's why I like driving. That's why I got out of a Challenger and into a Volvo station wagon, is because, well, part of it because having kid, but other part of it is because, like, I cannot stand these people talking to me. Oh, and I forgot about the 27 times I took that goddamn thing to the shop. That was part of it too. There's a lot of reasons to get out of that. But
the Challenger, you're presumably all under warranty.
Yeah, well, it was getting close to the end of like the 3 years, 36, and I needed to know Steve Leho like probably about 2 years before I actually like first talked to him. Because like the first question
What did you do? But you bought a second one.
No, the first one was fine. Okay,
Uh,
so this is because I'm an idiot. They redid the interior, and I was a dumb
Yeah.
20, 4-year-old, and I went, well, I like the new interior more. This car's still worth what I paid for it, so let me go trade it in, get another one, and I'll drive that one around, and I'll
Right.
have all the stuff I want
Right.
in it. I don't have to deal with doing it myself, so it'll all work. No, every new thing in that car fucking like bit me in the ass, and nothing worked. So.
That's too bad. That's a cool car. I've always thought they were cool. Visibility is the challenge.
Yeah, well, I think
That's the real challenger.
yeah.
Is
Hey,
visibility.
it's a great car to be in because I think it's kind of like the poor man's supercar back when I had it. But now that they're
Right.
everywhere and everyone has seen one, and you can get one at a goddamn Hertz rental place, it's
Yeah, exactly.
not cool anymore. And
They're not as cool as they were. They should have done a convertible. They should have capitalized on it when it was hot and done a convertible.
it definitely should have. Well, there was a stupid shop out of Florida I called. And I was like, "How much for a convertible?" That'd be $30,000. Yep. Nope.
$30,000. Jesus, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
No,
People would have paid $6,000 if Dodge had done one, but 30 for a conversion would probably void your warranty. That's not something that I would be involved in.
No. And the kind of the cool part of it, like having the nice black top and all that stuff. It's like, no. That was the first one.
Yeah.
That was ridiculous. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. So now I got the R, and I got my nice little fast car. It is nice when you actually pass someone now in a station wagon, and they give you the look like, what the fuck just happened?
So you're driving the R now, even in spite of its issues. This is your daily driver?
It's back to, well, it was not my daily driver for a while. Unfortunately, my daily driver for a while was a Volvo 740 with no AC, no radio, no anything. The interior was cut up to hell.
Hey, at least it's rear-wheel drive,
Hey, I managed to drift it a little bit with its 80-something horsepower, but hey, it works, it runs, and it drives, and I had a blast with it, and people gave me a wide berth when I drove that thing.
Yeah.
And as an article you had today, it has historic plates on it. Thank you, state of Maryland, for only having it have to be 20 years old.
God, that's insane. I mean, you go down there, you see Camrys in historic places. This is ridiculous, clearly.
Yeah, no, you said neons can be historic.
Yeah.
That's all you see in Maryland is goddamn Dodge neons, Plymouth, whatever, driving around. It's like,
well, I mean, if it exempts you from inspection, I would do it the moment I could.
Yeah. Well, no, the weird thing about Maryland, though, is you're not supposed to drive it every day, but if you get pulled over, you just say, I was coming from a car show. So
I was taking my Neon to a car show, and you just happened to stop me. I was heading to Cars and Coffee in my Neon coupe automatic.
That I do love it because I took because I'm a crazy guy. I had a 98 V70 cross country. I autocrossed, and now this is the new autocrosser. So the last time I was out, I was racing against a guy with a base model Neon and a Nissan Leaf were in my class. So that was fun.
I can imagine you were faster than the Leaf.
The Leaf was faster than the Neon. So
the Leaf was faster than Neon.
Yeah.
God. Were you faster than both of them? My best friend has that Volvo V70 cross country. He's got like a 99 V70 cross country.
Yeah, mine was
total
a
piece of crap. I beg him to get rid of it.
They're great cars. What? Keep it. Does he have the rear-facing child
problem
seats?
after problem, and his family bought it new, and they've had it now 15 years, and it's worthless, of course. And then problem after problem, and I just begged him. I said, "You can get it," and he says, "No. You got to keep it going. I love this car." And I'm like, "Oh my God, you've developed an irrational attachment. This is the problem."
Well, I love the irrational attachment, though. That's what makes Volvo for life. They mean it. Like, you're going to get too attached to this car, and you're going to keep it for life.
Volvo people, God, this is the problem with Volvo people. You get attached, and then you can't get off of it.
Yeah, it's kind of bad, because I was having the thought the other day. I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm going to drive this car, and the new Ford Focus RS is coming out. So I might trade this in and get a Focus RS. I'm like, even with all the problems, I think I want to keep this car. Maybe get rid of the Fiesta.
God. And Volvo hates you because they want you to buy a new Volvo. Volvo created their biggest problem. They created themselves, which is selling these consumers these cars to love and own forever. And so now nobody ever buys a new Volvo. You see people driving around in like a 960 they bought in 1997. And it's like, please, get out of here. Come on.
Well, it's hilarious too, because around DC, it's like, hipster chic to drive around like an old
Right,
Volvo or an old Saab.
right, right,
So
right,
I wave at
right.
all these Volvo people, and they always look at me like, "Oh, what the hell is this guy waving at me for?" I'm like, "No, it's Volvo. Like, you
No,
don't
no,
love
they're
it."
just driving an accessory. They're just driving an accessory for their lifestyle. You are actually sold on the brand. So you had a C30, huh?
I did have a C30. That was very briefly in between the Challenger and the R. I kind of used the kid as an excuse to get the V70R because I was like, well, I kind of want a fast station wagon because the C30 was kind of like, it wasn't really a sports car and it wasn't really, a luxury car. So it was kind of
Yeah.
stuck without an identity.
The C30 was a great car. I just wish that it had been 4 doors. I think that would have helped a lot because it would have been a lot more practical. But a 2 door is like, what can I really do with this? You know?
Yeah, no, the problem with the C30 that made it impractical was that the rear kind of angled in. So you could only
Yeah,
hope to get basically 2.5 people in that damn car.
yeah, the whole back. You're right. It was sort of a middle cross between a sports car and it was a weird deal.
I think it was the car, and in terms of perfect marketing, the perfect market for that car was like 20 something women, and then Twilight came out, and it was all over Twilight, and it was like, they're brilliant. So,
God, I forgot about that. That Twilight had all those Volvos in it.
no, drive a C30 for more than like 20 minutes, and people who know what the hell they're talking around you, and you'll be like, hey, isn't that Edward from Twilight's car? I'm like, I don't know, I didn't see the movie. Did you? No.
Boy, she's made her living off of getting people in new Volvos. Volvo should be a proud Stephanie Meyer fan.
They should. Well, again, I wish I fucking didn't know this. In the next movie, what was it, The Host? They were driving around old Volvo like 240s, so they kind of went backwards in their marketing.
I don't know. I wonder if she realized that she was even being weird because that's like all that's on the road up there.
Yeah,
is Volvo.
I think it's. I don't know. It totally did plan out this conversation. It doesn't like make a ton of sense to own a Volvo over literally any other brand. It's kind of like what Subaru is doing now. Like Subaru's kind of like, yeah, we're not terribly fuel efficient, we're not terribly like smart to drive, great to drive, but you just kind of love us just because you love us because we're weird and
Right.
quirky.
That's exactly right. It's and they get people to make these emotional attachments to their car. The second you start putting dogs in your advertisements, you're trying to sell emotion. But Subaru's done a great job of it. They sell a billion cars.
Yeah, again, not just to lesbians, which is the weirdest thing to me.
Yeah, I mean that's blown up. That whole thing is gone. I mean they're now selling to everybody. I mean I was just in Portland and oh my god, everybody's got a Subaru up there. I rented. I went to the Hertz to rent a car and they rented me a Subaru. I didn't ask for one, but they had. I'm like, where did you see a Subaru on a rental at? Well, in Portland, you know, a choice.
Well, it's not totally gone because a good friend of mine, his wife got the big Tribeca like 2 years ago, and
Yeah,
she basically started forcing him to drive it because, and these are her words, not mine. Every time I pulled into a gas station, some damn diesel dyke comes up and hits on me. So it's like, okay, so it's not totally
that's
gone.
surprising.
Yeah, well, I think.
Surprising.
Well, she was an older, attractive lady, and I think it was like,
Yeah.
well, might as well give it a shot. So.
Right.
No. So getting to back to kind of something thought about. So the biggest complaint I get because I drive this car and about once a quarter I get some other crazy Volvo guy who will come up, recognize what the car is, and talk to me at the gas station about it. And the moment he looks inside and he doesn't see the damn space ball, I get
Yeah.
yelled at. Like, why the
Yeah.
fuck didn't you get this with the manual transmission? Besides
Yeah.
the fact that it's 10 grand extra at this time, like, because it's kind of ruins having a nice fast Volvo in my mind. And you drove a CTSV and had the same problem. Like,
Yeah.
it,
The thing about both of those cars is the automatics is easier to find. The V, when I bought the V, I bought it specifically. I wanted it quickly so I could start writing about it, and there happened to be one in Atlanta, so I just did it, and I did it in the weekend. And then I wanted to see how the transition was. The funny thing is the V, drag racers prefer the auto. Now the Volvo, though, the automatic was also came with torque loss, if I remember correctly.
yeah, well, because I'm a crazy person, I kind of wanted, the car. Ideally, I drove from basically DC to Connecticut to look at one, which was an '06, which wasn't torque loss, but
Yeah.
uh, they were like, "Oh, come up on a Sunday and we can handle everything, and you can be out of here with the car." And I came up that Sunday, and they went, "Yeah, it turns out we can't. Are you in town tomorrow?" Like, no.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
God.
So then I drove back home. I had a lovely weekend in Connecticut, though. And then I drove out to Ohio because that was the next closest one, and that was an '05, which does have the torque problems. But
Yeah.
I don't
I mean, it's still. I have no problem with it. It's still fantastic. Especially in the DC area, you're sitting in traffic all the time. I mean, I'm not as much of an obsessive manual guy as some of those people. My view is I always want to have at least one manual car, but I daily drive an SUV. I mean, I don't. It doesn't have an manual. Sometimes after a while you just kind of want to not deal with it.
Yeah. Well, and plus now that I got a kid, it's gonna be I have to reach around and smack them every now and again, and you can't do that with a manual. So.
Right. No, but I mean, really, like there's some reasons like, it's a little bit more comfortable to drive the auto, especially in the city. I lived in the middle of a very busy city. I mean, I'm looking out. There's a taxi going by and a police car. This isn't a conducive atmosphere for driving a stick shift. When I can get out to the country and have fun, I'd like to have a stick, but that's what the town is for.
Yeah, and I'd like people like to bitch and moan about it and say, well, you should have got it. It comes with it. It's a sports car, blah, 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 blah. But they don't bitch about like every car. And the fact that people don't bitch about BMWs having the DSG and everything now, I think completely removes all argument.
Well, the days of even bitching about manuals are coming to an end because so few cars are even offered in manual anymore. I mean, if you really wanted a stick BMW, it would be very difficult, especially new. It would be very difficult to actually find.
Yeah.
So,
well, when
it's not even something you don't really have the opportunity to get them anymore. I mean, it's just they're not. You really have to seek it out.
Yeah, and when I bought even my second Challenger, I wanted a stick, which was unfortunately not the case. They found one for me in North Carolina. That was the closest one to DC, and they were asking 10 grand over sticker for it because they had the only one on the East Coast. I was like, that's fucking ridiculous, and it's good.
Yeah, no, it's not. It certainly isn't worth paying. It's gotten to be the same with the used car market. It's just they're not going for 10, 20, 50,000 more. And it's like, well, I'd rather just drive an auto than pay 10 grand. I mean, that's stupid.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I like about driving a manual in DC is you don't have to worry about your car ever being carjacked. So, because no one here knows how to drive a manual. Like me and like 3 other old farts, and that's it.
Yeah, although carjacking is less of an issue than it was, in DC.
Yeah, but there's still parts where you're like, roll them up, lock them up.
Well, I don't go. I don't spend a lot of time in Southeast. All right.
Well, there's still bad parts of Northeast too. I mean, when you come in, when you're coming in, I'm guessing I could probably plot it out. You're coming down to Baltimore Washington Parkway, I'm going to assume, because you cut through Baltimore, and then which is also fun to drive in. And then you have to get off on 50 and then maybe 50 to Bladensburg, and you get to Bladensburg and go, oh, this is not good.
Yeah, you go through an area for a little while that's a little dubious, and then you get into like Columbia Heights or whatever, or wherever it is, and you're like, all right, well, we're getting there. You can kind of tell when the boards come off the windows, when it goes from boards to bars. That's when you know, all right, well, it's cool.
Yeah. All right. So, changing gears a little bit here. What's the worst car you've ever either owned or driven?
Boy, worst is always boring economy cars. Like I hate any automatic subcompact. I mean, I've driven a Veo. I used to work at Enterprise, and I've driven a Veo. Those are just the biggest piece of crap.
Wait, you worked at Enterprise and you didn't think the Dodge Avenger was worse than the Dodge minivan?
The Avenger was bad, but at least it was a midsize. And by the end they were putting the Pentastar in the 100s and 200s. And those things off. But I just little subcompacts with an automatic, you just want to die.
Yeah.
That is the greatest argument for hard work this country's ever seen. Put someone in a Veo. And they'll be like, yeah, I'm going to work hard and get myself into a mountain.
Oh.
For sure.
Yeah, no, I don't know. The Aveo is bad, but I would say, what was that? The Toyota Yaris is somehow worse?
No, the Yaris, any of those, not the Fit. The Fit's pretty good, but any of those base segment crap boxes, that those companies are putting out. The original Kia Rio, the new one is great. The original Kia Rio was just a complete piece of crap. Any of those cars just do not. I mean, I've never driven a Mirage, but I bet it's probably the king of the bad. The Versa was terrible. They're all just so truly depressing.
Have you driven, and this is kind of my argument for the worst car I've ever driven, just because it was so utterly disappointing in terms of it, and my brother, when he listens to this, is going to be pissed. I learned to drive stick in my brother's '05 Mustang. So very disappointing with A, the way that car handles, and B, it's not as fast as you would think it is.
You say that. Have you ever driven an '04 Mustang? Because
No.
if you have, the '05 feels like the greatest car in the world.
You've driven an '04?
That late '90s new Edge Mustang was a pretty depressing car too.
Is that the worst generation of them? Because I've driven a Fox body.
Oh boy,
not
worst
bad.
generation of Mustang. That's a real question, isn't it? That you could do a whole biopic on the worst generation of. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's hard to say.
I've only driven a Fox body in the '05, and I've driven a new one of like the 2013. And it's not bad, but the '05.
Yeah, the new ones are excellent. The Fox body was great. I mean, the Mustang 2 was the worst, but that's almost a given. Then you got to go from there. Well, what's the second worst? Well, that's a hard one. It had to have been the late '90s one, because they did it with that horrible V6. And it was just terrible. God, I mean, there are panel gaps in that thing the size of an office chair.
Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and flip it around. What was the best car you've ever driven?
Best car I've ever driven. Oh, that's easy. BMW 1 Series M. Best car I've ever driven.
Really?
Yeah, it was amazing. And I wish to this day that I owned one. And if I wasn't doing this whole writing thing, I would buy one so that I could just drive it. But I don't think it's interesting enough to write about. But yeah, best car I've ever driven.
Well, that's a future collector car too, because they had, the 1 Series M, because they only made, how many did we get? Like 600 here in the States?
It was a small number, and it was only one model year, and it was a huge mistake on BMW's part that they now recognize as a huge mistake, and they should have sent more. They should have made more. They should have put in a longer period. Yeah, it was an amazing car to drive. It's so much fun. It's totally unassuming. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
I hate their new, and I love Bob Lutz for the way he did his numbering with the BMW and everything, but I hate, just on a side note, I feel like they think we're idiots now with we have a 1 Series and a 2 Series and a 3 Series, and if it's even, it has 2 doors, and if it's odd, it has 4 doors.
I think their theory, their hope, I think it hasn't come to fruition yet, but I think their hope is that one day the 4 Series lineup will actually grow very separate from the 2 Series. So like how Lexus has the IS and the RC, and those are technically the sedan and the coupe. I think one day BMW wants to get into that world where the two cars are so separate that you don't identify them together. And so that gives them sort of more freedom to do different things with them. Put one engine in that's exclusive to one, or send one in a different direction. I think they want you thinking that those are completely different cars. And I wouldn't be surprised if one day they are.
I get that, but then, I don't know, if you talk to Sergio Margione and says all cars have to basically be the same in 20 years for us to survive.
Well, he's the biggest industry fatalist in the world. Do you remember when he said that he hopes that nobody buys the Fiat 500e because he loses money on everyone they sell? He openly said, "Please do not buy this vehicle we're offering to sale because we lose money on it."
Now I want one because, man, did they fuck me over with that second Challenger. But
you want to get back at him? Well, listen, the Pope is driving around your city right now in a Fiat 500L.
I know, I saw that. What? Okay, I know he's a man of the people and everything, but if you're driving a 500L in DC, no one else drives those things except for people from Enterprise, and kind of which one's the Pope again? Oh, right, the guy in the stupid Fiat. We got it. Right.
The funny thing is, he's in a motorcade at 30 Suburban, but he's man of the people. He's driving around his 500L. Of course, the really funny thing is the car is sold in America by American dealers and it's built in Serbia, but it's an Italian company, and I guess when he's in Philly, he'll be in a Wrangler, which is even weirder, but there he is.
Yeah. I don't know. That whole thing just new. Like, stay out of because this will be up tomorrow. So stay out of DC from like Wednesday to just Friday. Just fuck it. Like, don't come.
Right. Yeah.
And
For
if you,
for us, we got the weekend here because his biggest thing is here in Philly. He's doing a whole big mass on the steps of the art museum. It's going to be a complete nightmare. They're towing cars and closing roads. But it's the Pope. The Secret Service has said this is the largest security operation ever.
yeah, I forgot he was there in Philly. Like, you're fucked this weekend, right? Like, you're not in you're not in Philly.
In fact, we are not where I live. We are not allowed to leave our home in a car. If we do, we can't keep it until he's gone. So if we leave, because we're within the Pope perimeter, if we leave the Pope perimeter in our car, we're done. We're done. We can't return. It will not be able to come back. We have to walk in.
I just like Pope Perimeter sounds like a new hit show on ABC or something. Welcome to the Pope Perimeter.
It sounds like a band. If I was naming a band, I'd call it Pope Perimeter. Isn't it bizarre? I mean, this is where we're living. This is the life we've chosen for ourselves. 1/4 of all Pennsylvania state troopers will be in Philadelphia, providing security for the Pope.
Yeah, oh my God, it's crazy. And like, don't come to the East Coast. Just stay away, everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of things that piss us off, Doug, what's your biggest pet peeve when you drive?
When I drive, undoubtedly left lane people. But most of my driving I do is now on the highway because I just walk everyone Philly. And so I do a lot of driving trips between New York and DC, and the unquestionably people sitting in the left lane are the all-time stupidest, most annoying, unbelievable things. Especially because if you spent any time driving in Europe, they move over immediately.
Yeah.
But here in the States, I drove home from New York last night at 2 a.m. and there's people sitting in the left lane of the Jersey Turnpike. There's nobody else on the road. They're just sitting there. It's the speed limit. I'm like, you got like 4 lanes. Yeah. Move over. What are you doing?
Have you driven in the Midwest at all?
Oh yeah.
I simultaneously love it and hate it for this reason. 99% of the drivers out there. I used to drive 100 miles every day from Chicago to Normal, Illinois. Well, every day for a little while, and then it was like once a week. And 99% of the time, everyone's in the right lane unless they're passing and get over, and it was very European. Until you get that one guy who decides, I'm going to find the car next to me, and we're going to be going the same exact speed for
and he can
forever.
screw everybody over.
Yep. I think it's a weird power thing. I think that's what it is.
There is absolutely an element of that. There's also an element of, you shouldn't be going that fast. And it's like, well, let the police deal with that. I'm going to go as fast as I want. You're not the police.
Mm-hmm.
You let me do what I want to do, and I will let you do what you want.
America, freedom, get out of the way of my Hummer, or else I'll spread some freedom all over your ass.
Trust me, the Hummer has never seen a left lane in its life. I promise you that. That thing tops out at about 61 miles an hour.
I would like to challenge you. I don't know if this is something that they would let us do, autocrossing. I would like to challenge, if you'll let me, your Hummer versus my 740 next year sometime at autocross.
The Hummer will take out so many times. I actually was planning on taking the Hummer autocross, but I did a track day with it, and we just did a drag strip, and I think we're not going to do autocross because it's just kind of, but I think the Hummer, I don't think you 0.6 second quarter, which is, I mean, that's real slow. I think a really fast bicyclist could kind of get in that league. So,
well, you got that stupid, like, it's not quite, well, you got the gas engine in that thing, right? You don't have the diesel?
Yeah, mine's a gas, which is actually a benefit at the time.
Yeah.
People don't realize this, but when the Hummer came out, it was sold with a diesel. It was a non-turbo diesel. It was just a naturally aspirated diesel. So when the gas motor came out, the gas motor actually has more power and torque than the original diesel engine. The gas motor was an upgrade. I can only imagine how slow the original diesel was.
Well, let's say diesel not too loud with what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
VW.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Well, I mean, VW. In fact, they didn't make, unlike what their executives say, so they didn't make a mistake here. You know, this is an intentional act. Let's be clear.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm kind of two minds of this, and I kind of posted something earlier on. Well, someone posted something on Opposite Lock, and I was a dumbass and commented on it. Like it's almost kind of like the skip shift Chevrolet used to put in the Corvettes, but it's kind of different because like we were the ones bypassing that, and BMW, without our knowledge, was bypassing, which I get, but
Right.
I don't know.
Right. You're talking about the 1.4 upshift deal.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, you're right. Not only is the VW the one bypassing it, but they were selling these cars to their most green focused customers, right?
Yeah.
They sold these guys on the idea of clean diesel. It turns out they didn't have clean diesel.
Yeah. No, I get, man, and I don't know. And someone asked me this today. Like, is VW a company 10 years from now? I think this is something we can recover from, but I don't know. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
for some reason, like people treat this worse. Like I hear more talk about this than I did with like GM's ignition switch recall, which I owned a car where that happened to me a couple times, and like I somehow still like I get GM people died, and then Ford people died, and then with the Pinto and with the Explorer, and yet somehow people are talking about this more in my circles.
Well, here's the deal. I mean, I understand that and I respect that, but here's the difference. Ultimately, General Motors did not create an ignition switch that would kill people, right? Yeah. Ford and Firestone did not come up with tires so they hoped would kill their customers, right? You know, it was ultimately an unintentional act. Now, there was some cover-up and concealment afterwards, which was bad, but ultimately, these things were not intentional, right? And there's not one person sitting at General Motors saying, I'm going to kill everybody. In Volkswagen, literally, there is an engineer out there who was at the head of it who said, we're going to create a device that violates the law. I mean, that's a different world. You know, this is something you see in finance occasionally, but not in the car world. This is such a big story because it is so rare in the boring, dull, staid car industry that you actually see a wanton open disregard for the law. It's interesting. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely interesting, and I'm gonna love to see like what comes of it because there's no way they have. Well, they just said what $7 billion or some crazy amount aside for fixing all these cars.
Yeah, I think the $7 billion will probably cover it. It's insane to think about, right?
It is.
But I just fine in fixing all the cars. That should probably.
I just can't imagine they didn't go to like their legal department and go like, is this something we're going to have to deal with?
Well, the cynical person says, I can imagine they did go to their legal department and say just that, you know, and they did it anyway. And that's I mean, we will find out, or maybe we never will find out how it happened and who made it happen. But I think the real story here is, how high up did this get? I suspect it didn't reach the top executive. How high up did it get, and who knew what and when, and who green lighted it?
Yeah, that's good. You know, at the very least, like 20 years from now, it's gonna make a great movie. Like that's.
It'll make a great but slow movie. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
Right. It's an amazing story, and it'll be an amazing thing to see what happens there. They need to somehow make the recall compulsory, which has never happened before. So I'm very curious to see how that'll shake down.
That's going to be the weird bit too, because damn it. No, that's going to be the weird thing too. Is like, if I own one of these cars and I want the gas mileage, I want to keep it not recalled.
Yeah, absolutely. It is in your best interest not to have the recall performed, unless Volkswagen can figure out some way to fix the emissions profile and keep the fuel economy and the performance. But of course, if they could have done that, they would have done it from the get. So I mean, I wouldn't want the recall.
I almost wonder if that was the intention from the get-go of like, we want to reach these numbers and we can't get there, but we can probably do it with some sort of programming. So just go out and just let it bypass, and then 10 years from now or 5 years from now, we'll have it figured out, and we'll just go ahead and reprogram.
The problem is, that may have been because they changed to the AdBlue now. The problem with that is they knew they were facing significant fines, and they probably knew the fine amount was $37,000 per car. I mean, it just would never have made sense for them to do this. Surely they'll settle on a lower amount. But we're still talking only in the United States. We're talking 18 bill. Plus, they claim now that there's 11 million cars affected worldwide. Now, U.S. diesel emission laws are way stricter than elsewhere, but it could still cause a problem for them overseas. It's just insane, totally insane.
It is kind of crazy. And speaking of kind of crazy, and I figure we'll go kind of out on this. I don't know, Doug, you kind of firestorm a certain group of people sometimes with your post. A lot of the Ferrari owners, I think, were kind of displeased with you for a while. And like, is there a group that you are just never going to go close to, like, insulting?
Well, no, it's insulting. Well, I actually try not to insult too much. I don't know.
Let me rephrase the question.
I try to be reasonable.
Let me rephrase the question. Is there a car brand you will never buy or review just because you don't want to deal with that group?
Well, I will try my very hardest never to get too involved with Porsche, because I think there will always be a question of fairness there because of my employment history. But other than that, no, I think that everybody's fair game, and Volkswagen's the worst, right? Like, VW Vortex is the craziest of them all. So if I'm pissing off them, which I do as often as I can, then I guess I can't really get too worse than that.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know. I'm trying to think of, like, the worst group. I don't know, like, lifted pickup truck owners, maybe, just because most of them are armed most of the time. But
yeah, but they're not on the internet, so it's all right, you know.
It's a very good point. They're too busy fucking cousins. So.
well, you said that, not me. But I certainly won't argue with it.
I will. Okay, so I will say this: in my old house, there was out in the boonies, and there was not as many Confederate flags, but there was a lot of lifted trucks. And now where I'm living, on the border of the nice area and the, like, redneck, like, white trashville, I see every lifted pickup truck has a Confederate flag now. I don't know why that is. I think it's designed to piss people off who live in a nice part of town. So.
Yeah, I think people are trying to piss people off. It's weird. The further north you go, the weirder it is to see a Confederate flag. You know, in the South, I get there are some people who truly believe it's a symbol of heritage. When I see it in Pennsylvania, I'm like, you're just a racist. You're not. There's no heritage here. You're just a damn racist.
The weirdest one is Illinois, because you have the big Confederate flag, like, bumper sticker or whatever hell it is, and then right next to it is Illinois, land of Lincoln. Like, you get these don't work with each other. God.
I never thought about that, but that's so true. They got Lincoln's face on the damn license plate.
Yeah, it's like, I get out. When I was younger and slightly dumber, I would get out of my little Saturn and talk to these guys and go, this is the state that elected Lincoln that beat the Confederates. Like, it's about heritage. No, no. Like, God, cognitive dissonance. Like, if it was performance art, I would get it.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. All right.
No, I agree completely.
All right. And then I know I said the last question is the last question, but I think I got a couple little quick ones here. So I asked Opposite Lock about a couple things, and I think the question I want to ask you is, one of the guys, when you do your little bio, it says, I quit working at Porsche mostly so I didn't have to wear pants. So I forget who asked me, but I'll ask on his behalf. Are you wearing pants right now?
It's funny because I make that joke, but the truth is I actually always wear pants. I wear shorts like 99% of the time, as you've seen in the video. But I no longer have to wear dress pants, and that was the single greatest thing about leaving my job. And I have a pair of dress pants that I wear to events occasionally, and boy, do I hate it. But the thing is, if I don't put on pants, I feel like I'm not doing anything. You know, you ever do that? You sit there and you wake up, it's like 2 p.m. You're not wearing pants. You feel like you're just an idiot, which I am. But I
get
to
that.
At least shower and put on shorts. You know?
Yeah, no, there's something about, like, doing stuff around the house, wearing pajama pants, and then wearing, like, jeans, and it's just like somehow the difference between those two is, like, not a man, now a man. Like that. No, I'm doing
exactly.
shit.
If I'm sitting in front of my TV with pants on, I'm doing something.
Yes.
But if I'm sitting with like underwear, I'm like, boy, I'm really let myself go.
Like, what am I doing? It's 12 o'clock, or it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I don't have pants on. And whereas you could do the same exact thing, but with pants on, and no one's the wiser.
Yeah, with pants on, you're living a real life.
Yes.
You're actually a real person, and you can justify to yourself that you're really doing something.
Yeah. All right. And then, kind of, the last little thing is there any car out there that you haven't had the chance to drive yet that you're just dying to get your hands on, and just it hasn't happened yet, or you just don't know how to get to it?
The sad answer to that question is the new Range Rover. I would kill to drive a new Range Rover. And the fine people from Land Rover PR who send me nasty emails whenever I write about mine, they have offered me to drive the new Range Rover. But I really don't like press cars, and so I haven't taken them up on it yet. But someday I will have to, because I think it is the most beautiful car on the road, and I would love a chance to drive.
And I guess that'll be it for us for the evening. Doug, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for
having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Like, thank you for keeping us in mind. Like, we had like a long email discussion a while ago, for those who don't know, and then Doug kind of emailed me recently and was like, "I'm sorry for not getting back to you," and I was like, "No, no, no,
I'm
no,
an
no, no,
idiot.
no."
I didn't check my emails for like a month in the summer, but I'm back in business now. So I apologize.
No, believe me, no need to apologize. Like, we're the idiots who do a stupid podcast. You're the like, thank you for being on the show, guy.
Well, no, I'm the idiot who. It all works out. We're all idiots here, so
Yeah.
we're in a good position.
Yeah. And now I just need to call out Christopher Titus, who hasn't responded back to me, and maybe that'll work. So,
hey man, you got Bob Lutz. You know you're running a real operation when you got Bob Lutz. That's what GM figured. So.
Yeah. So if you haven't read Doug's book, Doug Loves Cars, I picked it up a couple days ago, and it is awesome, and you should pick it up. It's $3. What the fuck? Why aren't you reading it right now? Yeah. And thanks again, Doug, for being on, and have a good one.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
All right, sir. Have a great evening.
Thank you. You too.
All right.